Hello, and welcome to Enlightened Empaths, your community for the spiritually awakened, where we discuss, explore, and connect with fellow empaths, healers, intuitives, and seekers. Hello, empaths. Today we're going to talk about something we get quite a bit of emails about: how to tell the difference between a sign and a coincidence. Recently, we had a listener write in about how she and her partner received signs that they would soon be pregnant, but it never came to pass. Do you remember that one?
I do, yes.
And all signs pointed to yes. About a year ago, we had a listener write in that she had asked for and received several signs that she should leave her job, but that change didn't really work out as she hoped. So it's just left us wondering what's happening here. Could it be that sometimes we misread a sign? Or could it be that we're supposed to follow the sign because the disappointing conclusion is a lesson we need to learn? Honestly, I'm not sure I know the answer to these questions because I do think it's unique to everyone. But what we hope to accomplish today is to give an overview of what a sign is and what it's not, so that we can be better informed and prepared when we are asking our guides for signs.
And we've brought this topic up quite a few times over the years, but I think it's one that, for myself anyway, I think I revisit because I used to look at it with more rigidity than I do now. It used to be, oh, if I ask and I don't get it, that's the only way to look at it. And I think there's more play to it than that. And you just made a really good point that it's not a one size fits all.
No, it's really not, and it can be confusing because of our brain. So I got to bring in some sciencey stuff here. You ready?
Oh, I love the science. Yes.
All right, it's a little boring, but I think it really will help us in terms of
This is going to be boring, people.
this is a very boring podcast episode. Hit pause and play it when you're trying to fall asleep. No, just this one part. So often when we ask for a sign, what we're really doing is we're training our brain to seek that sign out. This is because of our reticular activating system, or RAS for short, which is a network of neurons that filters and prioritizes information based on what you're focusing on. Then there's the pareidolia effect, which is the brain's way of assigning meaning to images, like seeing faces in rocks or an image of an angel in a cloud. Our brain loves to find patterns and assign meaning to them. And all of this reminds me, Denise, of the purple car theory. Have you heard of that?
I have, yes.
Okay, so for listeners who haven't, this is the idea that once you pay attention to something, you start noticing it more often, even if it was always present in the background. So in the case of this theory, the something is a specific car color like purple. When you choose a purple car, your brain's reticular activating system begins to focus your attention on that color, and suddenly you're seeing purple cars everywhere, and you're like, wow, when did these get so popular? It's not actually true. They've always been there. You were just training yourself to see it. So this theory is connected to another one called the frequency illusion, which is a cognitive bias where something suddenly seems to be everywhere after you first notice it. This is based on confirmation bias and selective attention, which is when you notice some things and completely miss other things. It's all determined by where your focus is. Like, take, for example, if you're in a bad mood, do you ever notice how you see the cranky people or the rude driver or the shopper who left their cart in a prime parking spot? One of my biggest pet peeves. But when you're in a good mood, you see the child running into his mom's arms. You notice a hawk soaring at the sky above you, and you tend to encounter kind, happy people. Do you ever notice how like attracts like when you're in those different moods?
It can, or you can be the catalyst to pull someone out of that grouchy. So it's both, but I agree. You do tend to focus on where you are with your mood.
If you're awake and aware and spiritually tuned in and turned on in that time in your life, I 100% agree with you. And that's what we all strive to be. But sometimes you just get in a bad mood and then your brain is like seeking out bad mood stuff to, just confirm your bias in that moment.
Right. And if you're trying to find an answer or a validation or something to say, I asked for this and now I'm seeing it everywhere, your brain is highlighting those things to match what you're looking for. I agree with that 100%. But I think that there's that wiggle room of, is this what I want to see, or is this actually coming from spirit to me?
Exactly. Like I remember when I was trying to get pregnant with my first child, and I really wanted to get pregnant in August, so she would be born in May, so I could have the summer off with her before I had to tap into my maternity leave. It's a thing with teachers, right? So in August, I was doing everything I could to manifest a pregnancy besides in addition to the obvious. But I was doing all sorts of vision boards and whatnot, and I was asking for signs, and I was seeing like 20 to 50 yellow butterflies a day, Denise.
Oh,
And I was like, oh my gosh, it's my sign. And so I told Olivia's dad, I'm like, she's coming. Like, I'm getting pregnant this month. Look at these butterflies. And he's like, that's a lot of butterflies. So it was like a Saturday. We're driving around. I'm like, there's one, there's one. So I said, I want you to count the butterflies. And he did. And he saw a ton. And he was like, that's weird. So, of course, he had to do some research. Well, it turns out that that's the month in my town when those yellow butterflies hatch and fly everywhere. But I got pregnant that month.
okay.
Was that a sign? Was that coincidence? Do you know what I mean? How it can be confusing. It wasn't a normal amount of butterflies I was seeing every day.
Right.
There was a explanation for it, a rational explanation for it. But I had asked for that as a sign that I would get pregnant that month, and I did get pregnant that month.
Okay. And I think that this brings up a really important point is, yes, you might be inundated with it, but we have the ace up our sleeve as empaths is, yes, your brain is playing a role, but true signs feel different. Did you have a different
Yes.
feeling when you saw them than just, oh, there's another one. I'm going to start, clicking off and keeping track of how many. I think that we always have to pay attention to how it feels.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. The feelings are important because I just want to mention one more thing about our sciencey brain. We've
Yes.
got so much information flooding into us all the time. It's more than our brain can ever take in. So it has to have these different filter systems. That makes sense. But instead of having to process all of this, our brain is going to get picky. Sure, it filters out the background noise, it ignores what doesn't matter, it zooms in on what feels important. That's selective attention at work. So you want to think of it like a spotlight. Whatever it shines on becomes the main event, and everything else fades into the background. So, this is where your brain has this habit of looking for and trusting information that already agrees with what we believe. Once you notice something and then keep noticing it, it starts to feel like proof that it's happening more often. But is it proof? Or is it just your brain being like, hey girl, you want to see yellow butterflies? I'll show you yellow butterflies. So even if you don't realize it, your brain is kind of keeping score in the background and quietly tallying up the evidence until the pattern feels very real. So all of this might have you thinking, well, is anything a sign? Or is it all my brain filtering out stuff and highlighting the things that confirm my sign? So that's what we're going to try to answer today. You had talked about how the number one way to tell if it's a sign is the feeling. And I think that is completely true. You've got to trust your emotions and your feelings. So do you want to talk about what that feels like?
Well, I think if it's a real sign, and before we jump into that, I was thinking about years ago when we were doing this, and there was something I had asked for a sign about, and I got the sign, and I had really perseverated, yes, no, should I, maybe could. And as you're speaking, I'm thinking, did I want it on subconscious level? So I looked for that sign. So is there also, are you tapping into what you truly want your answer to be when you're inundated with seeing that everywhere? So yes, your brain is playing a part, but is also your heart playing a part in hoping for that outcome?
Yes. And that's where I think we have to be very careful. But you do know when you see your sign, there is this feeling that washes over you of peace.
Yes, it's very calm.
Yeah, it's very, very calm. And I think it's also important to pay attention to what you're doing when you see your sign. If you're actively looking for your sign, like me driving around looking for the yellow butterflies years ago, that could be your brain at work. But if you asked for a sign and genuinely kind of forgot about it, just went about your day or your week, and then you find yourself seeing that sign out of nowhere, and you get that tingling, happy inner knowing feeling, that's a really good indicator of a genuine sign.
That's a good point because the signs that come to us or the ones we ask for, I think, are different.
Yeah.
Remember about a month ago, I was going through some stuff and I sent you a picture of the red piece of yarn.
Yes. Oh my God.
And,
Yes.
and
Tell people about that. It was just
okay.
on your kitchen floor.
And this sounds really wingnut. So, and I'm practical enough that I do have both oars in the water still and hopefully will until the end of the days. But I was going through some emotional stuff and I was cleaning out some craft stuff. And I got up the next morning and I walked across the house and there was a piece of red yarn in the perfect shape of a heart on the floor. I didn't have any red yarn that I moved. It was on the complete other side of the house. And I sent Samantha a picture of it because it was a perfect heart. It wasn't, and I went through the whole thing. Did the dog get a piece of yarn caught and brought it across the house? All those things. But it was a heart, wasn't it?
It was a heart. And let me tell you, I collect heart-shaped seashells on the beach. And they're not always heart-shaped, apparently, according to my family, because I'll pick up one and then my kids will go, "Sure, Mom, that looks like a heart."
Okay, so I do that
With
with
the
rocks, but when you
right?
pick them up, do they look like a heart to you? And then
Yes.
when you look at them later, they don't?
Yes, sometimes.
Okay,
Yes.
same thing happens.
Yes. And especially when they're in the sand, it's like, oh my gosh, that's a perfect heart. And then you pick it up and like the bottom is broken or something. But
Hmm.
anyway, all of that being said, the picture you sent me it was a red yarn string and it was perfectly shaped in a heart
Yes,
on the floor, like someone
yes.
had
Like,
meticulously arranged it for you.
so in my bubble head, I would love to think that spirit, someone that loves me in spirit, was saying, "We've got your back. We know you're going through a hard time. We're going to let you know, and we're going to send you this heart that it's going to be okay." I That's where I went with it.
That's where I think anyone with a heart would have gone with it, right?
This is silly, but most of us we have the cameras on our phone all the time. I find myself taking pictures of signs or things that feel like a sign. And then when I look back at them, or I'll pull an oracle card that will really, really be a heart punch, and I'll be like, oh, I better keep this one and I'll keep track of this one. Maybe that's a good way to train ourselves to say, if you look back, it was like, oh, that doesn't look anything like a heart. I just wanted to see it. I don't know. It might help.
But maybe we're just pains in the asses and we're being too hard on all of it, because but really think about it. You're up in heaven, okay, 100 years from now, and you see that one of your kids is like having a crappy week. Maybe his boss is just on his ass too much, and he's just stressing, and you just want to send him some love. You can't
Yeah,
speak to him. He can't hear you. He can't see you. That's frustrating. So all you can do is have him hear a song that you know is going to cheer him up, or maybe have him stumble upon a heart-shaped rock.
right.
These are ways that they are connecting with us. And I think when those signs come to us out of the blue, I do think we need to accept them and say thank you.
Right, because that's that second way of knowing, is this really a sign? Is your notice your state of awareness. So were you actively looking? I wasn't looking for that yarn. You weren't looking for the shell specifically. So did it show up when you weren't even thinking about it? And for me, that's whether I'm asking for a sign or whether a sign comes to me, there's a spontaneity to it. And I think sometimes signs tend to show up when you finally have let go of it actually being there.
Yeah, that's true too. You also do want to look at the timing though, because when you ask for a sign, so not when it just shows up like your miracle heart sign, but when you are asking for a sign, show me this if I should do that. You should see it in the next 3 days. And that's not a hard and fast rule. I just mean like, if you ask for a sign and then a month later you see it, that might be a coincidence. Don't you
S-
agree?
I do. Do you think it's important to, if you're asking, say, okay, within 3 days or by Tuesday, I need to see this 3 times? Do you think the specificity makes a difference?
For me, it does.
Okay.
But that's just me. So if I ask, okay, show me a turtle if I should delay this project I'm thinking of working on. And maybe 2 weeks later, I see a documentary about sea turtles. Is that my sign? Or is that me seeing a documentary on sea turtles?
Right.
But if I say, okay, show me a turtle if I should delay this project by the end of the week, and I see that documentary or I see an article about turtles, or my neighbor's kid runs over to show me her new stuffed animal turtle, to me I'm going to take that more as a sign because it's more appropriately timed.
Yes. I agree with that. And I do think there's something to, so going back to the brain chemistry for a second, you've asked for a turtle and then you start seeing turtles everywhere. Is there a correlation, or do you think that, for me, if I've stopped thinking about it and it shows up, that's when I know it's a sign. That's
That's,
as
yeah.
simple.
Yes. Yeah. And I think too, when you have a sign that you have asked for, if you're consciously looking for it, I
Yeah.
just think that's more activating that part of your brain that we were talking about before. But if you can't, it's tricky though. You got to let it go, but not forget it totally. That's why I always say to my guides, "Hey, if I should do blah blah blah, show me a purple flower and make me aware of seeing it."
Oh, that's a good line to add.
Yeah.
That's really important, because they might be showing saying, for crying out loud, why won't she see these flowers?
No kidding. I know. The first time that happened, I was driving to, I don't know, Sam's or Costco with my family, and I was just kind of, you know, talking to my guide in my head, as you do. And I do still have two oars in the water too, I promise.
Yeah.
But I had a question about something I needed to know, and I said, "Show me a purple flower if I'm supposed to do this." And I felt my guide say, "Okay, but tell your family because you're going to forget." So I told my family, I said, "Okay, guys, look, today, if you see a purple flower or I walk past one, let me know." Okay. So we're walking through Sam's, and I walked right past a huge display of purple orchids. And I remember my family stopped me and they were like, look over there. There's a lot of purple flowers. But I was just in the zone of walking through Sam's and maybe looking for my next free food sample. I don't know, but I completely missed it. So I always add that and make me aware of seeing it.
Yes.
You also want to pay attention to your body because when it is a genuine sign, usually you'll feel tingles or a warm feeling in your heart. You might feel chills up your spine or the hair on your arm raise or just a sense of spirit with you. It's almost like an emotional hug.
Well, when it's a really good hit, I will physically say out loud, damn, that was a good one. Or high five to spirit, because sometimes it is just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Oh, I told you about mine last week, right?
No.
With my guide. I didn't tell you? Okay. So I have one guide on my team that I absolutely love, and I haven't heard from him for a while, and I really got the feeling that he has moved on.
Mhm.
And that's fine, that happens. So I was driving around and I said, "Hey, if you're still on my team, show me, this sign by the end of the week." And I did not see that sign. And I got it, message received, but I was still a little salty and a little sad that he decided to move on to someone else. And so then I thought of my main guide, and I was like, okay, if and it's a long story why I said this, but I said to him, if you are still on my team, because like I was thinking, oh my God, like what if I have a whole new team? What if because I haven't heard from them from since the holidays. And so I said, if you're still working with me, I want to see or hear the name Buddha before tonight's over. Which, again, is a little bold. That's quite a quick turnaround. And this was in the afternoon. I was meditating after work. And then I got up and showered and changed and got ready for my weekly trivia group. And trivia, it's not super hard. It's a lot of pop culture, it's a lot of history and some geography. Third round, the question was Siddhartha also goes by this name. And I was like, Buddha! We're so excited. And I got such a feeling of warmth, like, oh, you are still with me. Now, again, Buddha is not my guide. I don't want people emailing me going, who the hell do you think you are? But he has always shown up with that Eastern religion connection. And so that's why I asked him to show me that as a sign.
Yeah. But again, the last place you would have expected to find a sign.
At my weekly pub trivia. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was really cool. Okay, so let's talk about how you can ask for a sign. So what I believe and how I do it is I will state my question or a need or a problem and I will choose a sign. I usually choose a sign in nature, but you can choose other things and then ask to see it in the next 3 days. And again, it doesn't have to be 3 days, it could be a week, but you don't want it to be like anytime this year. You just want you want to give an end date to it that's pretty close to your questioning time.
And I think the ones that do show up more, what just flashed in my mind when you said that was I was driving back a long time ago. I was driving back at night, and in the middle of I was listening to the radio. It was late. I was driving home. I was tired. And in the middle of the set that the station was playing, they played a song that my father used to play on his guitar. And he used to sing and play guitar. And it didn't fit in the set and it didn't fit, but I knew. So he'll come through a lot with that specific genre of music, that timeline of music, often just to let me know he's around. And this is decades later. So I think if that's a different sign than asking for a sign. If someone in spirit consistently shows you something over an extended period, it's okay to trust that too.
I don't even think that's a sign. I
You
think
don't?
that's just, no, I think that's a hello from your dad.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? I think that's just his way of popping in and saying, hey there, I love you.
Do you think it would be a sign if you were churning over something, trying to
Yes,
figure something out? Okay, because at
yes,
that time it felt more like a sign. So yes, I
yes,
do think that,
yes.
okay, good point.
No, and I'm sorry.
Very
I did
good
not
point.
mean to take that away from you as a sign.
You
No,
didn't. I'm
I
not
just
bruised,
mean
I
I do
promise.
think sometimes you'll just hear something or see something, and it's like, wow, you really are still around.
Yes.
And I think it's just like a little hug or a pop in or a visit. But yeah, if you're definitely thinking about or ruminating over something, and sometimes you might even be thinking like, gosh, I wish my dad was here so I could, talk
Yeah.
this around with him, and then that happens, then yes, that's a sign.
Yes. But you're right. It's about being intentional, isn't it, when you are asking?
Yeah, yeah. You don't want to say, like, just show me a sign. You want to choose a sign that makes sense for you. And it should be specific, but not overly detailed. So, for example, say, I'd like to see a red flower versus I'd like for someone to deliver 12 red roses to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little too specific. And I have found that metal, like coins and things in nature, like a flower, a butterfly, a hawk, or a music, like you were just saying, are the easiest ways for them to show us signs.
Yeah.
But then you have to surrender your expectations. So you might see the sign in person, you might see it while scrolling through social media, you might see it in a magazine, or you might hear your sign brought up in conversation. Let's say you've asked to see an eagle for your sign, and the next night a documentary on eagles pops up in your feed. Or maybe you asked to see a yellow station wagon, and the next day at work, your coworker tells a story about learning to drive in his mom's old yellow station wagon. So there's different ways it's going to appear to you, and I think you have to be open to that.
Yeah. And they're not always visual.
Yeah,
It
that's
could
very,
it
very
could
true.
come up in a conversation, it could come up in a dream. And I love those ones when you ask for something or you know it feels like a sign and you've said, "Oh, please show me this." And then it shows up in the damnedest funniest ways that you would say, "Oh, I'm thinking about one time I asked to see a duck and it was hysterical how the duck showed up. I was talking to someone in a conversation. They said, "Oh, we went to this restaurant. We had roast duck, and it was so delicious." I think, "Okay, you're talking about eating the duck. Does it still count?" I think it does. No,
I love that. I remember asking, I was getting very specific. I said, show me this if the answer is yes, and then show me this if the answer is no. And I can't even remember what I asked for. Let's just say, show me a purple flower if it's yes, and show me a red cardinal if it's no. Something like that.
yeah.
And a week went by and I didn't see anything. No purple flower, no red, nothing. And I was really mad. And I was driving to pick up my kids from school. And I remember saying to my guides, I'm not asking for like, you to part the Red Seas. I'm not asking for a huge sign from above. I'm just asking to see this or this so I can have some help with direction in my life. Is that so hard? What does it mean to be a guide? Help me out here, people. And literally a truck pulls out in front of me. I had to like slam on my brakes, and it was a truck from a company in my town called A Sign from Above.
Oh, see, how much more could that be in the category if you can't make this shit up?
I know, I know. I love it. Okay, so you also do want to stay present once you've asked for your sign. Just spend the next few days trying to focus on the present moment, not thinking about seeing your sign. You just want to ask for it, surrender it, and trust, while just also remaining mindful of your surroundings and your thoughts and your situations and what's going on. Because I think so many of us, we just we're not in the moment. Two things reminded me of that this week. I was getting ready to teach my dream class, and I was thinking about the lucid dreaming exercise I was going to be teaching. And one of the hallmarks of preparing yourself for a lucid dream is throughout the day, you want to say, I am awake right now. I am awake and aware. I am awake right now. And I always think that's so stupid, right? Like, obviously, I'm awake. I'm driving in this car, or I'm cooking this dinner, or I'm talking to this person. Clearly, I'm awake. But I started doing that, and it actually was really helpful because it made me more present and more in the moment, going, yeah, I am awake. And right now, I'm so awake that I'm seeing the wind gently drift through those beautiful branches. So I think it was a good thing to do. But the other thing I've noticed, Denise, I have been behind so many slow drivers lately.
Uh-oh,
I
not
know,
one of your favorites.
not one of my favorites. But what I've noticed, because I always look at the person who's driving slow. I don't know why. It just always fascinates me. Do you not have a job? Do you not have
Do,
anywhere
do
to
you look
be?
at them or do you glare at them?
No, no, I'm just curious. Like,
Okay.
especially if it's an older person, you go slow. That's fine. I get that.
Okay.
These last 2 weeks, it was all young people, like really young people in their 20s and early 30s. Their heads were bobbing up and down, up and down.
They were playing phone.
Yes.
Okay.
And there was this one girl, I don't think her head was up at one time.
Yeah. That when people are driving towards me and I can see the top of their head, I get very concerned.
Me too. And
Yes.
and so since I started noticing it because I'm awake and aware, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Which goes back to the driverless cars we talked about.
I know. I look right now, I'm all for it. Well, I don't know about that, but you know what I mean. Okay, so that's what you want to do is you want to ask for your sign, give it a timeline, make it specific but not too specific, and focus on surrendering it while also staying mindful.
And I'm just going to add one little negative twist. It's not really negative, Nancy. If you're surrounded by people that are going to make fun of this or negate this or tell you, oh, you're just seeing what you want to do, don't tell them. Keep
Oh
it to
gosh,
yourself.
yes. Yes. Except for this podcast, I keep 90% of my thoughts for myself.
Same.
Right? They don't, I mean, really, because it's This is such a unique, nichey world that we live in terms of, well, I was talking to my guide while I was meditating. I mean, there's very few people you can say that to.
And it's important to have the conversations, but if you're, yes, 100%. And I remember someone that I respected and loved dearly, a family member years ago, and I said something and they sneered at me and said, "Ah, what is it, Denise? A sign? You getting a sign?" And I shut right down. And I was so hurt that they said that to me.
That
It
is
was
so hurtful. And how
it,
many years ago was that? And you still remember it?
oh my gosh, we're probably talking, oh dear God, I didn't even think about that. It must be about 35 years ago.
Wow.
So longer than a lot of our listeners have been on the planet, but it's as I just felt that in my stomach, that same reaction to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Uh,
that's one of the number one rules with manifesting goals is keep it to yourself. Let
yeah.
nurture that seed until it has sprouted its first bud. Because if one person poo-poos it, 35 years later, you're still remembering it and that sinking feeling in your stomach. I will bet you most of our listeners are nodding their heads, being like, yeah, I've been there. I know I have.
Yeah. Going back to what you said about the purple flowers and walking through Sam's Club, you trusted the people that you were with to share that, and they were on the lookout to look, hey, there's the flowers you were looking for. So that it was safe. You trusted them. I think that's really, really an important thing to keep in mind.
Yes, no, I do too. But I'm always mindful of people who are, and I'm also respectful of people who aren't into this stuff. And I
I,
think that's a really important distinction.
I agree with
If
that
it's not
so
your jam,
much.
it's not your jam, and that's absolutely fine.
Right. And it's never ever to negate someone else's belief system.
No,
Um,
no, we
so
have to respect people where they are in their path.
right.
So if you do all of these steps and you do see your sign, afterwards, it's really important to acknowledge it. So you want to validate it and yourself and the situation you are asking about. I think it's so important to express gratitude. Think about all the hoops your guides had to go through to get you to notice that sign at that unique moment. So say thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how did your people take a red scrap of yarn and twist it into a perfect heart shape on the floor of your kitchen?
Yeah.
It's
And and
amazing.
and I don't need to know how they do it. I
No,
don't need
no.
to know because I think there's some mystery involved in that. And so when anyone is so, oh, they do it because this happens and this happens, I think, I'm not so sure I believe that. I want there to be a little mystery to it. I really do. I want to trust because for me, that's a trust thing. When things happen that there's no logical reason how, or your turtle shows up, or your flowers show up, or you find that red piece of yarn in the shape of a heart, I think it's letting us know how much more there is and how much more is available to us. I
Yeah, that's so
hope.
funny that you say that because I know the guy who hosts the trivia night, and I was going to ask him, why did you pick a question about Siddhartha tonight? Because the
Mhm.
question before was about like how much money Britney Spears made from selling her music stuff, and the question after was about Punch the Monkey. So it's not like we had, questions on quantum physics. You know what I mean? Oh my
Yes.
gosh, can I just divert from my own self for a minute? Is Punch the Monkey just saving yourself and all the messiness of the world news right now? Because I know it is for me. Are you following Punch the Monkey?
I followed Punch a little bit. I think Punch has a soft spot in my heart. Yes.
Yes, me too. Although I think some of the videos I've seen recently are AI.
Oh, see, that's the problem. We don't need to AI everything.
I
Can't we
know.
just be here a little bit?
There is the cutest video of him dipping a little rag into the water and cleaning his little stuffy.
Oh, well,
And my
I've
girl told me that was AI.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all right.
But everything we've talked about to jump back over the fence, it is about being present. It's about trusting that it's meant for you and it'll find you.
Yes. And once you do get your sign and you've acknowledged it and you've said thank you, then you need to take action. So after you receive your sign, spend a moment meditating or journaling and use this time to see if you receive any additional messages. Let's say, for example, you've asked to see a frog, if you should take the leap and leave your job. The next day, your friend might give you a lucky feng shui frog. When you pause to meditate on this or write about it, you might get a message or a thought, hey, call your friend Lucy. And so you decide, all right, I'm going to act on that. And you call Lucy, and she tells you about a brand new job opening at her company. I remember I asked my guides to show me a hawk if I should keep querying agents after I'd gotten a couple of rejections. And I saw a hawk that afternoon, and I immediately emailed two agents, and both of them called me before the end of the day with offers of representation. And this was after how many years, Denise?
Wow.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times we forget that part of taking action ourselves.
And and I think it's, well, personally, that if it's something that you've wanted for a long time, so I always say it's the you're standing in front of the big barn. Do you go around that barn one more time or do you start moving forward? And I'm going to say you have a big project. We'll use that example. And you get the sign, yes, it's time to do this project, but there's something in you that you're not quite ready. It's okay. It's okay that, yes, they gave you the sign. Yes, it's the encouragement. Yes, you have to take action, but you still have choice and free will.
Yes. And we can never forget that.
Right. Because I think sometimes we might not be ready or circumstances might. What you and I have talked about this a lot. What you'll find is if it's meant to happen or be in your life, it will keep coming back until you say, okay, I'll do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Or until you're finally ready to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'd rather see it that it's safe to move forward with that aligned action. It's okay. We've got your back. We're going to help you bring this to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you also want to pay attention to other types of signs. It could be an intuitive nudge, a dream, a bunch of synchronicities lining up. You can even have a situation where you overhear conversations that are mirroring your thoughts. I remember John Holland had a whole chapter about this in one of his books. Do you remember that?
I do.
I can't
Yes.
remember which book it was, but ever since then, I've always kind of I think I've been a little bit of an eavesdropper when I'm at the grocery store or other types of places where you're just sitting and waiting. But I had a client who was grappling with an opportunity to travel overseas. And she was telling me how she was standing in line at a grocery store and she overheard the couple in front of her talking about their friend who had decided to take a trip of a lifetime and it was the best thing she did. And so she took that as a sign that yes, she should go ahead and take that overseas trip. Or maybe you're working on inner child healing and you see someone reading a book on this topic and decide to get your own copy. We've done, Deb and I did a whole episode years ago on my other podcast called Library Angels. And it was just stories we had collected of people finding books in really wild, cool ways. You know, like a book will just like fall out of a shelf, or
Hmm.
someone will just hand you a book that you need. That's a really cool phenomenon, too.
And there's a divination technique of open any book and you'll find what you're meant to read. You'll be drawn to a book. I can't think of the term for it right
That's
now.
how my sisters and I survived Mass, Sunday Mass for years. Isn't that terrible? We use the Bible that way.
So I think going back to how we started the show was what about when the sign you're getting doesn't line up with what your intuition is telling you?
Yes. What do you do then?
Right, because especially as sensitive people, we tend to trust our intuition. Okay, my gut is telling me yes, the sign is saying something different. I think part of it goes back to what we said about those four signs is what is your body telling you? Does your heart feel heavy? Is your intuition resisting it? Or are you convincing yourself because it's what you really want to hear? So it's an incredibly fine line with this one.
That takes a lot of honesty with yourself. And I
And
think sometimes that's hard for people when you really, really, really want something.
yes, especially if it's a strong emotional, a relationship, having a child, whether you should step away from your security and stability of a job and move into something that feeds your heart and maybe not your wallet quite as readily. So I think when there are strong emotions connected, which there often are, um, it makes it even more poignant to pay attention to, does this align with what I'm feeling and knowing on an intuitive level? Because it should be validation. It should be supporting what you feel and know, not giving you something completely different.
Yes, and remember my mantra, if it's meant to be, it will be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes, like, I've seen this with clients so many times, and tell me if you have too. I remember I had this client, she was 40 and she was boy crazy. I mean, you know, those types, like, they always have to have a man in their lives, they always have to have a boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
She'd been divorced for a couple of years. And I told her that love would come into her life when she first learned to love herself and love her alone time. Did she want to hear that? No, she did not. And so she told me that she kept getting all these signs that love was coming into her life now, now, now. And I said, that's great, great, great. But again, let's focus on, learning to love yourself and setting healthy boundaries. And she started dating the first man she saw, and he had so many red flags. I didn't have enough red ink in my little pen to identify them all for her. And she just refused to see them. And she just kept pushing forward until he broke her heart. And then she said, what is wrong with my guides? They gave me all the signs. They led me to love. They showed me love was coming, and now my heart is broken. And I had to really gently point out to her, yes, love was coming to you, but you jumped on the first false flag form of love that appeared to you rather than using discernment and that really, really raw honesty with yourself.
Okay. And that's a incredibly important point, because if it looks like a sign, is it actually highlighting something you need to process or face? So remember way back, and we don't need to go into the details for time, the blue butterfly story.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, you know the blue, but we know that story. But it didn't go in the direction that the signs were pointing, but it was a huge line in the sand for me to look at some aspects of my life that had been repetitive. And in my heart, with retrospect, I know that that scenario happened to help me see something I was either blocking or unable to face.
Right, right. Which is why that meditation and journaling accompanying the sign is so important.
Yes.
I
Yes,
just
because it
don't think that we should make major decisions based off of signs. I really don't.
it should be another compliment to the
Yes,
process.
yes. I will tend to ask for signs for things like the example I just used. Should I keep shopping this manuscript to agents? That's not like I'm not quitting my job. I'm not leaving a relationship. It's an email to another agent. It's not a huge thing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen a lot of listeners and clients who will leave major decisions in the hands of a sign from the universe. And I just think we need to have more faith in ourselves and our own inner knowing.
Well, it's the I must not have thrown the cards right mentality when we really want the
Yeah.
outcome. So, and so I must have asked the question wrong. I better shuffle and try
Better
again.
reshuffle these and
Right.
make sure they're all right side up this time.
My heart, my truest soul belief is that if it is something that is going to keep us safe, it is something that is going to prevent. I mean, I think there have been signs countless times. Don't get on the plane. Don't take that ride home. Don't do. I mean, those are things that have come in. Should I go and visit this person? And you get the sign, no, and then you find out something horrific has happened. I think spirit will protect us sometimes with the signs that they give us, even if at the time we don't think that it's what we're supposed to be hearing.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
hope so anyway.
No, I think so, and I agree with you. But again, we are on this earth to figure this stuff out. And if they just pop up with a purple flower every time you're supposed to do something, how are you going to learn anything?
Yeah, good point.
You
Pe-
know, we. We got to
It,
figure it out ourselves, cut those apron strings.
which ties in with remember the episode we did on how the energies are changing and new beginnings and spring and Aries and all this stuff. And we kept bringing up it's about trusting your own inner knowing and stepping in. I think it's the same thing with the signs. You're working collaboratively with spirit on these signs. And if it resonates with you and brings you peace and it helps you go within and trust what you're getting, that's going to have a lot more pull than if it's just, ooh, I saw 7,500 yellow butterflies and they happen to be migrating this time of year.
What a coincidence.
Because we're both so, and this is not a bad thing. I think it's good to be a little cynical and skeptical about the signs. Because if you're just drinking the Kool-Aid and making everything a sign, it doesn't, it hasn't ever worked that way for me. Maybe it does for some folks.
No, but I don't think, like I was saying before, I don't think that's the point of why we're here.
Right.
We're here
Right.
to figure it out on our own, but sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of guidance or encouragement along the way. But ultimately, we have to take ownership for every decision we make and every decision we choose not to make.
Yes. It's an invitation.
Yeah.
It, it and it's fun. It's fun when things show up. And I shared with you earlier, a very unique name showed up in an email that related to someone that recently passed in my life. Was that coming through from that energy? I don't know. I'd like to think it is.
Yes,
So,
I feel 100% it is.
yeah. So I think sometimes it might be, you don't, it doesn't always, oh, I got a sign. You don't have to always tell everybody. It's okay just to enjoy it with you and your team and yourself and whoever it is in spirit that's sending it to you.
Yeah, exactly. I hope we've given people some things to think about in terms of discernment and working with signs.
Yes.
Because really, what I wanted to do, and I think you too as well, was just talk about how sometimes it is a coincidence. Sometimes it is your brain just filtering it out. And what really worries me when we get emails like the ones we mentioned at the beginning of the show, I don't want people to lose faith in themselves or their spiritual team or their spiritual path because they asked for a sign, they got what they thought was the yes, and it still didn't come to pass.
Right.
I think sometimes there are other reasons for that, and I just wanted people to think about that for a minute. You don't have to agree or disagree with us, just food for thought.
Yeah. And and maybe have a sit down with your team and say, okay, we need to work on this a little bit. I'm confused.
That's right. Or just start with a gentle thing like I do from time to time. Hey, are you still on my team? I need a sign. I need a check-in. I need a hello.
And but I'm just saying, okay, how can we get this through the trivia night? Get in there.
She'll be listening to that. She'll be paying attention. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Send us an email if you've gotten a really cool sign or want to share a story about a sign you've asked for and did not receive. I think it could make for some good questions and stories on our next community connection show. You can always email us enlightenedempaths@gmail.com. Don't forget to check our upcoming events and our work on our websites. Denise's is The Grateful Messenger, and mine is SamanthaFay.com. Remember, as always, to show up, do great work, and share your light.
Take